So, what are the best classes in Pathfinder 2E? And honestly, what does it even mean to be the best? We're going to go really deep in this video. Hello folks, Phil Gallagher, aka Thraben, you here for another Pathfinder Second Edition video, and welcome to the best classes in Pathfinder 2E. I think this video is going to be a lot of fun. Now, before we get started here, a quick content check-in. If you are enjoying my content and you want to see it keep happening, please consider supporting this content. A YouTube membership is a really easy way to support me for just a couple of dollars, and you get early access to all of my videos. If you're looking for a chance to meet me, my next in-person appearance for Pathfinder stuff will be at MythicCon Charlotte in November, and I will only be playing Pathfinder there. I've already played all the Starfinder scenarios that they've got going on there, unfortunately. Now, today's video is a response to a community project started by RebelThenKing, and I'll talk about this in just a second. And I want to talk about how difficult it can be to actually kind of empirically say what is the best in a vacuum without carefully defined metrics. I'm going to talk about the value of RebelThenKing's project, and I do think it has massive value. I just want to get that out of the way up front. And I want to give examples how different table differences and levels and experiences can impact your ratings. And in the final section, I'm going to go really hard because I super disagree with the community on the evaluation of a couple of classes. And I'm going to talk about 5 classes in particular that I think the community has evaluated completely wrong. Now, a couple of things before I get going. Number one, this video is made with RebelThenKing's explicit blessing. I have been chatting with them via Discord and with a lot of other creators about this project, honestly, because I think this project is great. Currently, there is a relatively small sample size for the voting. So I'm going to include a link to this in the video description, and I'm going to include RebelThenKing as a collaborator on this video. So if you are interested in ranking a bunch of classes and giving your thoughts on what the best classes are in the system, you'll have your way to do so. Without further ado, let's talk about the project that prompted this video. So a few days ago, RebelThenKing posted this very short video. It's only a 4-minute video called "Help Me, Let's Build the Best Pathfinder 2E Class Ranking List Ever," which was a relatively ambitious project. The goal was to have a large number of community members, hopefully hundreds or thousands of people, vote on this project and try to get a feeling for what classes the community thinks are the best. So this is going to be a ranked choice thing where you're not saying, oh, this class is a 5 out of 10. You are ranking them on a scale of 1 to 27 from best to worst. And as RebelThenKing clearly and openly states in the video, the idea of what it means to be the best is tricky, and I'm going to circle back to that in a few minutes. So this is left open. It does not say best in combat, it does not say most powerful, it does not say best designed, it just says best. Now, Reddit did what Reddit does, and as soon as a content creator makes a post, it is downvoted into oblivion. Reddit users, you have to be better about this. You cannot build up your community while taking any ambitious or cool or interesting content creator thing and downvoting it into oblivion so that people never see it. At the time of me recording this video, this really cool project has 55 total votes. There's like 900 views on the video. There's 0 visibility on this on the subreddit, which has, hold on, let me check, 115,000 users. Now, admittedly, not all of those users are active, but this is probably the coolest community project that has ever happened to the Pathfinder community, at least in my time of following it, and it is getting 0 visibility because people just downvote content creator posts. I'll get off my soapbox now. And the content creator response to this has been amazing. I am a big part of a content creator specific PF2E Discord where the content creators have a lot of discourse and we talk about things, we bounce video ideas off of each other and that sort of stuff. And this video has prompted pages and pages and pages of very, very useful and insightful discussion of how we value things, how we rate classes, and the content that is coming from there has largely inspired this video. And my own understanding of some of these classes has changed a little bit because of the information that is shared as a result of the conversation that arises from this ranking. And so, in the hopes that I get more people to engage with this really cool project, and in the hopes of sharing some of the sorts of things that the content creators are talking about in response to this project, I'm making this video. Now, I'm going to go back somewhere on the order of 2,500 years ago for a moment, and I'm going to talk about classical mythology for just a moment, as I am a Latin teacher on the side still. Content creation is my primary job, though. Let's go all the way back to ancient Greek society, and let's talk about the Iliad for just a moment. This is going to be a gross oversimplification, because normally this is like a 50-minute lecture that I give, but one of the core problems in the Iliad is that Achilles and Agamemnon, and these are both Greek guys, they disagree about what it means to be the best. Achilles believes that being the best means to be the best soldier and the most powerful fighter. And Agamemnon believes that being the best means commanding the most soldiers and being kind of the best leader. And if the two of these folks are disagreeing about what it means to be the best, it is probably because they are using entirely different definitions of what it means to be the best. And so when RebelThenKing offers this idea of what is the best class in Pathfinder 2E without carefully defining it, the data that we generate and how individuals are viewing this tier list are probably going to be very, very different things. Because you could be trying to view this in terms of objective power, as in like damage output. You could be viewing this in terms of utility. You could be viewing this as, hey, which one of these classes is the best designed? Which one of these has the most polish, the most flavor? Which one is best for roleplay scenarios? If you don't carefully define the best, then the data you generate is going to be all over the place. And so if you look at this trying to, decipher this data in a quantitative way, that is like, are the numbers consistent? Are the numbers going to produce good data in terms of, okay, this is clearly defined, we could repeat this and it would happen the same way? The data that this generates is probably not going to be good for analyzing this purely by the numbers. But, and I've talked about RebelThenKing about this in our Discord, it's not really about the numbers so much as it is the conversation that is going to happen as we start to analyze this data. We're not going to look at this data and go, hey, this thing is ranked number 1. It is unquestionably the most powerful. And I think it is very, very hard to do anything in terms of quantitative power when you are looking at 27 different classes. Even more if you start lumping in the Starfinder stuff as well. When I made my own best classes video, which I specifically limited to level 1 gameplay, that was a narrow enough thing that I think it was relatively easy to see which classes had standout power at first level specifically. And that was very much a combat-focused thing for the most part as well, which kind of zeroed me in on very, very specific things. And I think I did a pretty good job of outlining objectively which classes are the best at level 1. But for this project, which is so much bigger, I think the qualitative analysis is going to be very, very useful. And I'm going to use an extreme example here to illustrate this point. I rated the Alchemist as the lowest class in my own evaluation. I ranked it 27th. Now, one of the other creators, Lex Chexon, or Lex, who made a really, really great tier list, rated Alchemist the highest in their evaluation. So, we are both content creators. We both know these systems very, very well, but clearly we were on totally different pages in terms of evaluation methods here. And the conversation that follows up is very, very useful. For example, I think the Alchemist is a terrible class because it requires so much overhead work from the player to understand what their class is even capable of doing. You have to have an insane mastery of the items available to you in the system to even have a remotely playable character. And I think the Alchemist has a lot of problems in combat, with range especially, as the default range of a lot of thrown items in this game is something silly like 20 feet. And they are also using attack rolls rather than saving throws. I think there's a lot of things to dislike about the Alchemist. However, Lex was viewing this as, hey, I can give my party at higher levels like +3 or +4 to the very, very specific things that they are going to need for an encounter. And I can absolutely bend the math of the game to my will. And I don't think either one of our approaches is invalid here, but the conversation that happens as we kind of go back and forth and say, hey, what is going on? Why did you rate this way when I rated this way? That is, I think, extremely useful. Whereas if you average our two scores together and you get, oh, hey, Alchemist is a middle of the road thing based on this data, that's really not useful at all, right? So now I want to kind of go in and try to give some example evaluations, followed by sort of doing an analysis on the places where I really disagree with the community on how the community is valuing some of these classes. All right, now let me do a quick warning here. I am about to share a bunch of my evaluations of these classes and my opinions of these classes. So if you want to generate your own data before you hear any of my bias, and I'm going to have very, very different opinions from the community in a lot of places, this is your time to vote. Consider pausing the video here, spend a few minutes tinkering with your votes. One thing that I will tell you is you could probably spend hours on this if you really, really wanted to agonize over it. I recommend for your own sanity getting a good enough version of your list before you submit it. Figure out the best ones, figure out the worst ones in your opinion, and then move the ones around in the middle around in a reasonable capacity. All right, here we go. And I thought it would be really good to do a generic rating of the Kineticist, as this is a class that I enjoy a lot, but I think is incredibly difficult to evaluate. In terms of design, I think the Kineticist is amazing. I think it very much has that Avatar, The Last Airbender, I am a master of elements. I think it feels unique from every other class in the game. You are a resourceless caster of sorts, which means that you can do your stuff forever. You are great in a crunchy adventuring day. You have Protector Tree, one of the most broken feats in the system, at least as far as low-level feats are concerned. The ability to just negate absurd amounts of damage as a repeatable resource that is the same as a max-level spell slot as will is very, very silly. But it's not like you have no downsides, right? I don't know if you have ever faced a player level +3 boss encounter as a kineticist, but it does not feel good. That enemy's stats are so high, their saving throws tend to be so good, and you can't step it up like a true spellcaster can. And a lot of your things are different flavors of damage, and you don't necessarily have the same ability to throw status effects and buffs and debuffs around as a true spellcaster does. And similarly, since so many of your damaging effects are focused on reflex saves, when you are paired against a group of all high reflex save having enemies, your character is going to feel relatively weak. You're going to have excellent out-of-combat healing options with your various impulses, although there can be a huge amount of variation in your power level depending on which elements you are choosing and whether you're single-gate or multi-gate. As I already talked about in my best classes at level 1 video, I think this is one of the strongest classes in the game at level 1, but when you start comparing your impulses to what high-level spell slots are capable of doing, you're maybe not going to keep up, especially when you start getting like, oh, okay, you succeeded on your saving throw? Cool, you're still getting a terrible status effect. I think this is one of the best natural ambition classes in the game, as if you get an extra first level class feat when your class feats are already quite strong, like you can come out of the gate so powerful. But I will also say that the highest damage builds of kineticists are very boring to play. Um, Unquestionably, the highest damage builds of the kineticist are single gate fire kineticists, or at least starting out that way. And your turns are just, I'm going to Flying Flame because of its incredible flexibility. I'm going to trigger your weakness. I'm going to increase the die size by 1, and then I'm going to take 1 elemental blast attack as well. And that is my turn unless I need to move. Is that great, consistent, resourceless damage output that can go all day? Yeah. Is that class going to be interesting and fun to play over a long year, like a year-long campaign? No way. I would get so bored with that so quickly. So, okay. We have, I think, properly evaluated this class. Now put a number on that. Rank that from 1 to 27. Where does that fall? How do you weigh all of these various features? How do you determine what is the best? And this is where we come back to some of this stuff, right? Where depending on what you value the most out of this class, your evaluation for how to put a number on that could be very different. In terms of design, I think the Kineticist is incredibly well designed. And then you're going to have other people on Reddit in particular who go, well, actually, the Kineticist impulses don't work with a lot of things that allow you to just make strikes on something, and therefore the class is unplayable. And this is kind of the trickiness of trying to rank all of these properly. And this is why I think you could spend hours and hours and hours trying to go and rank all of these things appropriately. I think the Kineticist is probably a top 10 class in the game. I think that's pretty clear to me, but there's a difference between low level and high level. There's a difference between long adventuring days and short adventuring days. There's a difference between, okay, we're mostly going to do encounters versus a large number of weak enemies, in which case the Kineticist is eating good with all of their various EOEs, versus, hey, this is mostly going to be tough boss combats where you're not going to have a lot of fun. Because I'm using this as my generic example to show off how difficult it is to put a number on these, I'm not going to put a number on how I rated the Kineticist. I will tell you that it is in my top 10, but I think this is very difficult to do. And now I'm going to go through 5 examples of where my rating is just vastly different from the community rating. And I set my metric for this at a difference of 10. I wanted to talk about things where I was at least 10 different from the community aggregate rankings. And I'm going to start out with the Bard. I think the Bard is often hailed by the Pathfinder community as an S-tier class. And I think that was true for a while, and I don't think it is true anymore. So the community rated this as number 5 based on the aggregate data, and I rated this at number 15. So this was fully a middle of the pack class for me. And I have played a Bard in a campaign, so I feel informed on this. I think as far as occult casters go, the Bard is now outclassed. I believe that the Resentment Witch is now the debuff king, as the Familiar of Ongoing Misery is just silly. The ability to extend status effects, even on the strictest reading of what it is able to extend, is incredibly strong. And that's not to say that the Bard has nothing going for it, because its composition cantrips are very strong, and the Bard is still very good. However, I also believe that it is outclassed by the Necromancer as an occult caster. And in the campaign where I played a Bard, I switched to a Necromancer once the playtest was available. And my Bard felt like a good character, and my Necromancer felt like the best character at the table. The flexibility of the Necromancer was absurd, as if I could set up a Sure Strike into a Bone Spear, I would just delete an enemy. It would just usually full on die. And the couple of times where I crit on a Bone Spear, like, whoo, buddy, it was very strong. Muscle Barrier allows you to hand out a huge amount of temporary HP, and this is something, either one of these things, well, okay, maybe not the Sure Strike setup, but as far as the focus spells go, you get 3 focus points, and you have the ability to get a 4th if you need it by consuming a Thrall. And to have the ability to go, okay, here's an AoE blast. Here is an attack roll that can hit for massive damage. Here is a ton of temporary HP handed out to the person that is in the most danger. The ability to do all of those things with your incredibly potent focus spells is absurd. And yeah, sure, you maybe don't get as many spell slots as other classes, at least in the playtest version as it currently stands, but your focus spells are so incredibly good that you're probably the best focus spell user in the game. That one is definitely arguable, but your focus spells are pretty cracked. So within Pathfinder 2E, I think there are 2 better occult casters than the Bard. And am I cheating a little bit by talking about the Necromancer playtest since it's fully out? I'll let you decide. And as far as casters go, if we mix in the Starfinder stuff, I think the Witch Warper and the Mystic features are certainly competitive with the Bard. The Mystic is probably just the most rock-solid caster in both systems combined as far as generic features go. And some of the things that the Witch Warper can do with their Quantum Aura are very, very powerful. And I would say those are probably on par with, sometimes better, sometimes worse, than the things that the Bards can do with their composition cantrips. So, is the Bard bad? Hell no. Bard's a great class. Is the Bard one of the best classes in the system? No, I don't actually think so anymore. And the way that I'm viewing this is different from the way the community is viewing this. So, is the community still stuck on old metrics of, hey, the Bard is one of the best things in the system, and that is just being shared? Or is something else going on here? Next up is the Sorcerer, which the community rated as a 10, and I rated as 20. So, this was in about the bottom third for me. I think the Sorcerer gets very little from their class. I think most of their power comes from their spell list. And as more and more casters are added to the system that have access to, say the Primal and Arcane spell lists, which are relatively powerful offensively, I think the Sorcerer starts to fall behind. I think a lot of the blood magic effects are bad or forgettable. Now, let me say that there are some ridiculous things that you can do with them, such as when you anoint an ally so your blood magic effects can come from them, and then you repeatedly use Explosion of Power for a huge amount of damage. There are very strong things that the blood magic effects can use, but I am unimpressed by blood magic as a whole. It used to be that the Sorcerer's whole thing is that they were the 4th spell slot per level caster. And that's just not true anymore. The Oracle is also a 4 spells per level caster, as are the Witch Warper and the Mystic from Starfinder Second Edition. So the thing that made the Sorcerer unique is now no longer a unique feature to them. And I think that draws away from my ranking of the Sorcerer specifically. Do I think the Arcane spell list is great? Yes. Do I think the Primal spell list is great? Yes. But those aren't unique to the Sorcerer now. I also think that Sorcerer feats, generally speaking, are relatively weak. Since casters get a lot of their power from their spell list, they get less from their feats. And some of the casters that were printed significantly later than the Sorcerer have much better feats than the Sorcerer on average. The Witch, for example, is a great point of comparison here, where the Witch's feat Cackle at first level is just absolutely absurd. And they have other really, really good feats, such as Cauldron, that can vastly increase their flexibility, and I don't feel like the Sorcerer is getting the same degree of power out of that. Next up is the Summoner, and this was the largest difference, in my opinion, versus the community opinion. The community ranked this 25th of 27th, and I ranked this as 4. So If 10 points was my, hey, this is probably worth talking about point, this is over double that. And I think the Summoner is one of the best generalists in the game. I think the Summoner is good at just about everything. You have charisma, meaning that you are good at face skills like diplomacy, and that's something that I want to see from a character. I want you to have out of combat uses. You have martial strikes from your Eidolon. You have spell slots as well. The community loves gishes, right? There's so many different posts. How do I do this spell sword? How do I be able to strike and cast spells? Play a summoner. That's a great answer to that question. Especially if you look at something like the Magus and you're like, I'm kind of concerned about the action economy there. Well, guess what? The Summoner has some of the best action economy in the entire game. You have Act Together to effectively give you 4 actions per turn, and you have some other tandem actions as well that can let you do things like strike at the same time as your Eidolon if you want to get into the mix, or move at the same time as your Eidolon so that you don't have to worry about kind of positioning everyone in the right place at the cost of doing something cool on the rest of your turn. If you have a plant Eidolon specifically, you have access to the powerful primal spell list while having a plant that has awesome reach, incredible reach later on, and that is very, very good at doing things like tripping to help control the field. So you can make martial strikes, you can cast spells. You're still fine on a long adventuring day because make a strike and cast electric arc is only 3 of your 4 actions, so you can still move or fit in a demoralize or cast one of your focus spells to power up your strikes on your Eidolon. I think there is so much to like about the Summoner. I think it is incredibly well designed. Is it complicated? Yeah. Is it easy to build a bad Summoner? Yes, I really and truly do think it is. And the Summoner actually prompted a really good conversation in our content creator Discord, as I was very, very much in favor of a generalist like a generalist character who is not excelling at any one thing, but who is good at many things. And a couple of our other creators were like, I would rather play a character who is incredibly good at one thing because the system rewards you for being good at something. And the conversation that followed was very, very useful. If you are going to be making martial strikes, why would you want to play something other than the fighter that is arguably the best at doing that due to its improved accuracy over other classes? If you want to be casting spells, wouldn't you want to be a class that has 3 or 4 spell slots per level rather than a total of 4 spell slots? And to me, a generalist is a good thing. I like having a character who can do a lot of things because that allows me to engage with more portions of the game. Like the idea that I can demoralize, make a strike, and cast a spell all in the same turn, like that is super, super appealing to me. But I can easily see people who are like, I only have 4 spell slots for the entire day. That means I basically can't use spell slots. That is not a wrong way to look at it exactly. That is an alternate way of evaluating things. Are my hits going to be as hard as the Barbarian? Not even close. Am I going to have the longevity of spellcasting as a sorcerer or an oracle or a cleric? No way. But I can do a ton of things. And on that note, the last one that I wanted to talk about is the oracle. The community rated this as 26 out of 27, and I rated this as 16th. And this is the first thing that when I looked at it, I went, this is crazy. The Oracle is a caster that draws from 3 different resource pools. They have spell slots, they have focus spells, and they have curse-bound actions on top of that. And the idea that a caster that has 3 different resource pools, 2 of which are essentially renewable, it is wild to me to rank this as one of the worst classes in the game. So you have good focus spells. Spray of Stars is incredible for dazzling enemies and making it so that they are unlikely to hit you, or maybe less likely. And if you are a gnome in particular and you have Razzle Dazzle, you can make Spray of Stars feel even better. And this was a build that I enjoyed a lot on a character that I played in a handful of one-shots. You have Interstellar Void as a really cool way to just fatigue enemies as long as you are sustaining that spell. And you have an incredible blasting option, Debilitating Dichotomy, which scales up, I believe it is 3d6 per spell level, which is a wild, wild amount to be scaling up a focus spell that is reusable and potentially usable 3 times per combat. On top of that, you have these curse-bound actions that do good things. You can dump extra damage in with Foretell Harm. There's one of them that essentially gives you a recall knowledge that always succeeds and lets you know what the enemy's lowest saving throw is. I think you also get a +2 status bonus to your attack roll against that creature as well. There's another one that just gives you an initiative bonus to your entire party, as well as some temporary HP, I think equal to half of your level. So the fact that you are great in long adventuring days because you have focus spells, and you're great in long adventuring days because you have 4 spell slots per level, and you have these curse-bound actions, and the curse downsides are, I think, less bad than they used to be. And some of them, like I think it's the Cosmos Oracle, your downside is maybe not too likely to even come up at all. The Oracle's strong. Divine Access used to be a feat, essentially a feat tax that was mandatory on every Oracle. The Divine Spell list has some weaknesses. It's not great at blasting or has limited blasting options. There's some good things like, I don't know, Divine Wrath, but maybe you had to take Divine Access to get your Firebolt or your Lightning Bolt or whatever that kind of rounds out your character. Well, now everybody just gets Divine Access for free, although now I believe it comes at 11th level, which is later than it used to be. So when I'm looking at this evaluation of the Oracle, I wonder how much of this community voting is based on pre-remaster memory of this class rather than how the class exists now. I have played a pre-remaster Oracle. I thought it was fine then, although the downsides were more noticeable. And I've played a decent amount of the post-remaster Oracle at conventions, just playing Korakai, the Oracle Iconic, and I had a lot of fun doing so, and I thought it was very, very strong, even as a, honestly, clearly unoptimized build of an Oracle. All right, let's do one more here before I start wrapping things up. Let's do the Investigator. The community ranked this at 23, and I ranked this at 6. So this is another one of these times where the delta, the divergence, the difference, however you want to think about this, between how I am viewing this and how the community is viewing this is absurd. This is an excellent skill monkey class. You get a ton of skill trainings, you get a ton of skill increases, you're an int-based class on top of that. Like, in terms of contributing to roleplay scenarios and helping to solve skill challenges and out-of-combat problems, you're pretty darn good at that. I think it offers incredibly compelling gameplay patterns, as you're going to have turns where you know that you aren't going to hit the enemy if you make an attack roll, so you end up attacking some other enemy, or you find something else to do with your actions. And I think as far as a character goes, you have greatly reduced variance due to your devise a stratagem. If you, as a martial character, use your turn to move, go up, attack, you happen to miss, and then you take a mapped attack, which is relatively unlikely to hit, like, cool, that is your turn. You did nothing with your turn. You have 0 damage output for that turn. You did not meaningfully contribute to the combat during that turn. And I think devise a stratagem, which is usually going to be done as a free action if you are an investigator in a reasonable campaign with a reasonable GM. And if you are playing in a free archetype game, I think you have incredible options for what to do on your turns where you know that you aren't going to hit an enemy. I have had multiple investigators at my own primary table, And the psychic investigation on an investigator is just silly. Cool, I know that I'm not going to hit. Well, here's an amped daze. Even if my spell save isn't quite as high as it would be if I was a full caster, it's still reasonable, and there's a truckload of damage if you happen to fail that saving throw. Or, okay, cool, I know that I can't do anything with an attack roll this turn. I will cast a small buff spell on myself. And when you start getting to the mid levels, I want to say it's like level 8, you can get Clue Them All In as an incredibly potent reaction. And I think then at level 9, it scales up. So, cool. One of your spellcasters uses Recognize Spell, see that there is a terribly devastating spell coming, and then your investigator gets to go, okay, cool. I'm going to clue them all in. I'm going to give everyone a +2, I want to say it's a status bonus to this saving throw. And now we are significantly safer versus this, pile of status effects that otherwise would be coming. And the community rated the rogue very, very high. I want to say it was in like the top 5 or so as far as classes go. And the investigator has the same overall vibes as the rogue does, with the additional skill trainings and skill feats. And then the investigator is coming in nearly at the bottom of the list. This is very, very strange to me. Is the investigator always going to be the, highest damage output class? No, certainly not. But you have incredible options as far as out of combat stuff goes, with all of your skill feats that allow you to, investigate things well. And there's an investigator in my current campaign, and she has a Beastmaster free archetype. So, okay, cool. I know that I'm not going to hit this turn. I'm going to use my actions to command my animal companion instead, and they are going to go and do stuff. And she has a gun with boost on her character, which is a Starfinder 2E item. And okay, cool. I'm going to command my animal companion. I'm going to boost up my gun so that the next attack that I take next turn is more powerful. I think the investigator gives you a lot of really, really cool options. You're going to have a ton of skill trainings, a ton of skill feats. I don't understand the hate on the investigator that we are seeing in this list. All right. If you enjoyed the stuff in today's video, please vote in RebelThenKing's project if you haven't already done so. The more data we as content creators have from the community, the more we can try to mine this. Even if the data is not the best in terms of quantitative analysis, as you probably saw with the tail end of this video, the qualitative analysis of this is still incredibly interesting and useful. And I'm not going to break down all of the data that was in the video. RebelThenKing is trying to let this survey run for a couple of months and then produce kind of a highly edited and nuanced look at it in January. So I'm not going to post all of my own rankings. I'm not going to break down the entire popularity ranking or anything like that. I'm going to save that sort of stuff for RebelThenKing to do. But on the way out, because I know that I'm going to get asked this a billion times, my answer for the best class in the game was Animist, and I don't necessarily think that it is close. The Animist is incredibly dangerous in the hands of an experienced player who can manipulate their build on any given day by changing out their apparitions to do just disgusting things, and the ability to be a mixed, spontaneous, and prepared caster is something that is unique to the system, and that is powerful. Beyond that, you also just have some cracked focus spells. Garden of Healing is unquestionably the best out-of-combat healing that exists in the game. Earth's Bile is one of the best single-action focus spells that exists in the game, if not the best single-action focus spell. And that's only 2 of the apparitions. And that's not even getting to any of the silly things you can do, like, okay, at 9th level, I'm an elf, I get elf step, I get to sustain 2 of these as 1 action, and you probably get the idea, right? So with that, I'm going to go ahead and call it a day. I would love to see your comments on this video, though. And if you voted and you have some strong thoughts or you're very, very different from some other community members, feel free to throw that down in the comments below. Have a great rest of the day, folks. See ya!